Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Patrick, do we just have
How you doing?
I'm doing good. This is the Top Level Podcast. I heart you.
True.
I heart our listeners, but I'm super enthusiastic about something. Do we just have a decisive best deck right now? Is that what I'm seeing from
best
these Grand
deck
Prix
in
results?
Standard?
Yeah, am I seeing
No.
this? No, good.
No,
Okay.
you've got to be seeing this incorrectly if you think there's a decisive best deck, because there's, first of all, I don't even know which deck you mean.
Well,
There's like literally at least two different decks that are the decisive best deck, and there's a third that like a number of people feel like is the baseline decisive best deck. So there's at least three candidates, although I'm sure there's one that you're not picking. But
I'm happy if there's not a decisive best deck because I'm a contrarian. I played Blue Red Energy again last weekend and I like that. So
you got to stop that, man.
I won. It was just F&M, but I won.
Well, yeah, you're really great, but what I mean is that like you don't need to be handicapping it. Maybe it's good now though. I don't know. Maybe it's a good metagame call because like the metagame is definitely different than it was 2 weeks ago.
I mean, the only reason I'm playing it is because those are the cards I own for the current format, and I just haven't had time to get another deck. Been
Sure.
busy. I think that if I were just playing what I thought was like the highest win expectation deck in general, I probably would choose Red Black Zombie Madness.
That wasn't even one of my
that wasn't
three.
even on your list, right?
No.
So last week we talked about it a little bit, and I said I was impressed because I saw Ashok play. Ashok actually won a PPTQ last weekend with the Red Black Zombie Madness.
Congrats.
Yeah, so good man. I think the deck's real good, but the deck I was referring to when I asked the question to begin with was Blue White Flash. I mean, it won both of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, but was it the best performing deck at the Grand Prix?
Well, it sliced. I believe was it not alone in one of those Grand Prix top 8s where it just sliced through a series of black-green opponents?
I mean, how many people made top 8 with each of the two?
Well, in the one, I think it was only one.
Because like Blue White Flash on day 2. So the day 1 metagame, like take for instance Santiago. In Santiago, Blue White Flash on day 1 was 19%, and it skyrocketed to 29, almost 30% on day 2.
That sounds like it did really well, relatively speaking, on day 1 then.
However, Green Black Delirium went from 18% on day 1, a very close second place in terms of popularity on day 1. It went from 18% to an outrageous 31% on day 2.
Is that a combined Delirium, or we don't know which Delirium they're talking about?
No, that's combined. That's all the
Delirium.
different dedicated Delirium and dedicated Green Black and dedicated Delirium strategies. And
that's absurd, by the way. That's like 50% up from its performance to begin with.
How outrageous is it that the two most popular decks increase from 36% of the field to 60% on day 2? So it's crazy that they are both so popular and yet also both win so much. And what else is weird is that every other deck in the format, every other deck in the format has underperformed, except Mardu Vehicles, which performed almost exactly expectation.
Really, every other deck? So I don't
in Santiago anyway.
So the reason I ask is, I feel like
actually Red White Vehicles and Mardu Vehicles both were almost exactly expectation.
You think that Red Blue Fevered Visions underperformed? Because that one seems like, how could it have underperformed? How many of them were it?
I'm talking about only out of the major archetypes.
Well,
yeah, I'm not talking about decks that, like, for instance, even that. So Blue Red Fever Divisions was 3.5% on day 1, and it was only 1% of day 2.
But it was 12.5% of the top 8.
Right. I'm just talking about the conversion between percentage in day 1 and percentage in day 2.
So I think we can establish that Green Black Delirium and Blue White Flash are pretty good decks.
Definitely. And if you merge both red-white vehicles and Mardu vehicles. I mean, they're both reasonably, they're a little popular, and they are they're both performing at almost expectation or about expectation. So it would seem that they are actually decent, at least from. I mean, this is just the Santiago one, but like the difference, the delta. I mean, just Flash and Delirium are so far ahead of the others. So where were you going with it?
Well, I was thinking that the decisive best deck might be Blue-White Flash, right? That deck has got a lot going for it.
And I still think it's the best deck, by the way, just to be clear.
Yeah,
I just don't think it's decisive.
So I think like Kaklauskas and Chavarria played very similar decks. The main difference being, I think I like Kaklauskas' deck from Warsaw a little bit better because, we talked a little bit last week about Thalia, Heretic Cathar in the flex spots. And I think that that's a cool little mirror breaker. Also, it's just one of the best cards you can play for racing in Standard, especially if you don't think that the opponents are going to have an overabundance of creature removal. And I think I like that more than Chavarria's. He's got a lot of flex. He's got like a Spell Shrivel and a Sky Whaler's Shot. And I think that if I'm going to pick a 3 casting cost card to play as a flex in Blue-White Flash, I'd rather have a proactive one than these are all defensive ones. Because this deck, even though it's a Blue-White Flash deck, it actually commits its mana a lot, right? Like, your mana is spoken for on your own main phase via Selfless Spirit, Reflector Mage, Gideon, etc. quite often. So I think you lose your ability to take advantage of having some of these somewhat efficient reactive cards. And they're also it's not predictable when you're going to draw them in these decks. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's any library manipulation or smoothing.
Yeah, there's just Smuggler's Copter, right?
Right.
So I think, obviously having cards that make sense in your mana curve, even if you only have 1 or 2 copies and they're serving a certain purpose, or even if they're just keeping the opponents honest, right? Like, if you represent that it's within your range to Spell Shrivel someone, at some point during the day, if people know that, they're going to wonder if they should leave up 4. Right? That's a thing that you get as a potential advantage playing cards like that, or even representing that you're playing cards like that. I'm just saying, in a deck like this, if I'm committing my mana most of the time, and I leave up 3, maybe I'm just telegraphing that I've got my Spell Shrivel, right? Versus just slamming your Thalia on turn 3, you actually get such a tempo advantage against a lot of decks, even if it just means that their Gideon token's going to come into play tapped, right?
I mean, I don't know. This whole, what's the point of leaving 3 open in my Spell Queller deck line? Like, your deck literally has 4 Stasis Snare and 4 Spell Queller, and that's to say nothing of stuff like Archangel Avacyn. So I don't think that leaving 3 mana open telegraphs Spell Shrivel. You literally are a Stasis Snare Spell Queller deck.
I guess the deck is named Blue-White Flash. It has a number of key Flash cards.
Right, and the fact that both Sky Whaler's Shot and Spell Shrivel play into the other, it obfuscates them so well. That's part of the value you get, is the fact that you have plausible deniability when you're holding up 3 mana on these things.
That's fair. All right, I now agree with you.
That said, I don't know. I think Thalia
I still think Thalia's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Thalia is giving you an extra line of action against Ishkanah. Like, if you drop a Thalia before they can play their Ishkanah, you could actually get a little bit of enough of a tempo, enough of that extra attack can make a big difference for the race before it slips away.
Oh, but you mean like their impregnable fortress becomes very pregnable for at least 1 turn?
I guess, yeah. I don't know if I would ever describe it that way, but yeah, I think that's basically correct. I do want to note, by the way, that in Warsaw, the metagame was relatively similar to Santiago's. 31% white-blue flash on day 2 and 30% black-green delirium. So both of these GPs have over 60% white-blue flash and delirium on day 2. And both of these GPs had about, I guess it was, very close, like 13 or 14% over in Santiago and 16% in Warsaw for the vehicle strategies, but both events, a combined, for both events, over 75% of the field playing one of those three strategies of vehicles, Delirium, or White Blue Flash. And I think at this point that all those decks have been targeted and known long enough that it would appear that we really are mostly, until somebody comes up with a paradigm-changing thing, I think that we're settling into this is the paper, rock, scissors of sorts. This is the three-deck, this is a three-deck metagame, a three-deck format where just an overwhelming number of people are playing the same three strategies. And that provides a lot of opportunity for brewing.
The thing that's, well, first of all, I love those structures, right? When you can target, let's say, 2 out of the 3 main decks, if you're going to talk about black, green, and blue, white, that gives you such a great opportunity to kind of get the right dynamite in, right? If you're gonna use the rock, paper, scissors type analogy. But in my testing, and maybe you've got a different angle on this, I don't know which one is supposed to be which one. I feel like a lot of these matches are pretty, like, not even, but they're winnable from both sides.
Well, they're all winnable from all sides, but there's no question. Black, green, Delirium, the reason you play Black, green, Delirium is because White, blue, flash is in favor of Black, green, Delirium. White Blue Flash has the best numbers. Like, White Blue Flash is just the strongest deck. Black Green Delirium is a strong deck that has a little edge over White Blue Flash. And so that's why it's so popular, is that even though it's got worse percentages, worse percentages against the random distribution, White Blue Flash is just so popular and good and skewed towards the top that a lot of people are willing to play Black, green, Delirium just because they're like, well, this is a good strategy on its own, and it has a little bit of an edge against White Blue Flash. Whereas if you want to get like a big edge against White Blue Flash, you got to play a deck that's so bad against vehicles and Delirium that you're. But I don't know. I mean, that's just a real rough description, a shorthand.
So in Warsaw, Kaklowskis beat multiple Black, green, Delirium decks in the top 8, including Ben Stark, Hall of Famer Ben Stark, and in Santiago, it was also capable of defeating Black, green, Delirium decks in the top 8. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, which is that even if Black, green, Delirium has got, it's got some tools for White, blue, flash, like, it's just so that's what I'm saying. It's just so capable of being competitive with these other decks. Oh
yeah, I think all three of these decks are very competitive with each other. That's the thing. The vehicles deck, the Black, green, Delirium deck, and the White, blue, flash deck are all very competitive with each other.
Like, I spent one night, I think I played like maybe 20 or 30 games against vehicles with a couple of different decks, and at the end of like a 10-game set, I was just like, I'm not even sure which deck is supposed to win. Like, I felt like green, white aggro was supposed to have the edge, right? And I guess I won more than I lost. But
wait, green, white aggro?
Yeah, against vehicles, right?
Okay, sure.
Like, but it didn't feel like I had an overwhelming matchup. Like, maybe, that's just the texture of Standard to me. That, like, all these decks are so competitive with each other, including green, white, right? That's a deck that you played at the Pro Tour. So I guess what our job is the top level podcast, is kind of help the listeners get to the next level. How are we gonna find a space if we know that these are the 3 pillars: White, blue, flash, green, black, Delirium, and vehicles. What are the angles that we can take on the metagame?
Well, at the very least, the first step, and you were speaking to this earlier, and it's also the thing you called last week, Thalia, Heretic, Athar. Like, one of the reasons to play Thalia, Heretic, Athar, one of the biggest reasons is because you want extra edge against stuff like Ishkanah, Grafwidow. And if all you're going to play against is White, blue, flash and Ishkanah, Grafwidow, then, the Kaklowski's deck is, I mean, the 2 Thalias there, that is the metagame where you want them,
Yeah, I mean, Thalia is awesome against Gideon. I mean, as good as any fair card can be against Gideon, right? It's good there, right? The token comes into play tapped. Just get in, right? They can't.
That's not. Yeah, I don't know if I would call that good. But you do have good chances of making their prairie stream come into play tapped or something.
This is a best of a bad lot, right? When your opponent's resolving their powerful cards, there are a lot of different things that could go right or wrong for you. But I think that's one of them that's pretty substantial, right? Taking away its ability to defend itself is a thing that is good. And then also it helps you against Archangel Avacyn, right? Like Archangel Avacyn that's a big... is just the bomb diggity. And the thing is, both the card that you referenced earlier, which is Ishkanah Grafwidow, and Archangel Avacyn, are 5s. And 5s are historically excellent against Spellqueller. And so if you've got a deck whose primary source of interaction is Spellqueller, then you're just going to be in a situation where if you don't overwhelm somebody, if they have a bunch of 5s in their deck and they draw them, then they're going to have a great opportunity to leverage those 5s against you. And I think that Thalia is actually perfect because it comes down before a 5, and it takes away so much of the juice on Archangel Avacyn. Archangel Avacyn is such a powerful card, especially defensively, right? Taking that turn away is huge. I think getting one free attack against Ishkanah is huge. Both of those things are really substantial, and it makes me want to play more than 2 Thalia Heretic Cathar.
Mm-mm.
Now I'm crazy?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's crazy to consider, particularly since that Declaration Stone is only medium. But I do kind of like having a removal spell there.
I mean, if you're gonna play one extra removal spell, I think I'd rather have Sky Whaler's Shot.
Yeah, me too.
Like I told you, when I was testing green white aggro, I only had 1 Stasis Snare and 4 Declaration Stones, so kind of like the opposite of Kesklauskus's creature removal package for blue white flash. And I loved it every time I drew Stasis Snare, and I hated it every time I drew Declaration Stone. The creatures in Standard are just not the kind of creatures you want to deck in Stone. Right? They're all these value creatures. Or they're terrible, right? You don't want to...
I like exiling spiders is my, that's just a hobby of mine.
If I knew my opponent was always going to have Kalitas, I would be very happy to do whatever I needed to do to get rid of Kalitas.
Yeah, but I'm also just saying that, with Declaration in Stone being able to sweep up the spiders, that's a dimension that you don't usually have access to.
That's fair. Yeah, and it's actually such low negative, right? It's you're basically trading a card for their extra stuff, but you're not getting murdered on card advantage long term, which is one of the possibilities when Declaration in Stone isn't fast enough.
Yeah.
So
fair.
I think Blue White Flash, it's a deck that obviously anybody who's serious about Standard is going to need to know this deck. But Black Green Delirium, I think, is actually the one that's more interesting to talk about right now because we've got at least 2 highly distinct schools.
Yep.
And it's weird because they have so many cards in common and they couldn't be more different. I'm just looking at Ben Stark's deck. This deck is back to Pilgrim's Eye. This deck is it's so retro. We were talking about retro decks last week. This one is extra retro.
Oh yeah, it's continuing down the path you were describing of why don't we just go even more old school? 4 Mind Rack Demons, 4 Lilianas, let's do it. Pilgrim's Eye, all that. And it's not retro, but it is a nod to retro in spirit. 2 Noxious Gearhulks. He's got 2 Gearhulks in his deck, and they're both noxious.
So, I mean, far be it for me to criticize Hall of Famer Ben Stark. But when I look at this deck, I'm like, oh, Pilgrim's Eye. Surely he must be emerging, right? No. There's not even in his sideboard.
That's pretty wild.
It's just there so he hits his land drops because he's got expensive
it's an artifact.
Cards. Yeah, I guess you flip it sometimes, you trade with it sometimes. I guess.
Well, it's also, I think it's particularly well positioned in the format because of how well it matches up against Selfless Spirit and Rattle Chains.
But if you got 2 Gearhulks and you're playing with
and
you're playing with cards like Mind Wreck Demon and Pilgrim's Eye, which have a keyword on them, don't you think that the other Gearhulk, the other Gearhulk is so good? No,
because the thing is, why do you have a Gearhulk instead of Ishkanah? Once you're dedicated,
one's for hitting and one's for receiving. Okay, this deck is designed to receive, withstand, and then get a threat in, right? And that threat might be Emrakul. But if you're a hitting deck, right, which is the other version, then, Verdurous Gearhulk is among the best cards you could possibly use in Standard for that purpose.
So, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Where is it that you want the Verdurous Gearhulk and Ben Stark's deck? Is it against the Reflector Mage deck? Or is it more against the vehicle beatdown deck?
Well, I think that it's potentially good against both of those decks, right? So one of the things...
More the Noxious Gearhulk?
Well, Noxious Gearhulk costs
or
a different
Ishkanah Grafwidow?
Well, okay, Ishkanah Grafwidow is way better against both of those strategies.
Why don't you put a fourth Ishkanah Grafwidow in?
In this context. Well, it's a legend. That might be
Ishkanah Grafwidow, yeah, that's true.
That's one reason. I don't know. I just think, he's investing in Pilgrim's Eye, right? So he's got Pilgrim's Eye.
Not much.
So to me, Mindrak Demon is an offensive card. Do you think of that as an offensive card or a defensive card generally?
I think it really plays both sides. I mean, I'd say it's it is offensive, but it's an offensive card for mid-rangey, slower decks. It's not like anybody's playing Mindrak Demon in a fast deck. You're never going to see a black-red aggro deck using Mindrak Demon.
So,
he plays both sides of the ball. He's specifically good at look at the two most popular decks are Archangel Avacyn and Grasp of Darkness.
Well, he's good against both those cards specifically.
Right, but what I mean is that he's not in there to attack. He does attack, but that's because so many of the cards in this deck play both sides of the ball.
So I'm thinking, anyway, like I said,
he doesn't even have Kalidas. If you could just put the counters on Kalidas, it gets so much better.
Well, like I said, I think Kalidas is just so impressive, especially since I think Black-Red Madness is a good deck, right? So, that card is just... If it's in play, you either get rid of it or you can't win if you're playing Black-Red. And it's also... Kalidas is... I think even more than Mindrak Demon, Kalidas is a card that plays both sides of the ball, right? It's unbelievable if you hit somebody with it, right? Because
Kalidas is a lot, but he does play both sides, but he's a lot more defense than offense.
Really? I think of Kalidas as an offensive card because he's such a great racer.
Nah, he's much more defensive than... Because, when he attacks, he's also playing defense, whereas when he plays defense, he plays double defense. I got that one at pretty solidly 75% defense. But
that specific sentence I agree with.
It sounds like you might just be more in the market for a deck like Ria Boken, Oleski Ria Boken, who was playing a very Ephro black-green style, straight up 4 Blossoming Defense, 4 Verdurous Gearhulk. He had 3 Kalidas, 4 Catacomb Sifter, 2 Gnarlwood Dryad.
Well, this guy's obviously got a painting of Ephro over his desk as he put together this deck. This is very similar to Ephro's deck from the Pro Tour.
Yeah, he literally, he cut a Kalidas for a murder.
And his second, I thought Ephro only played 1 Liliana, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think he did play only 1 Liliana, so I'm not sure what the other one is.
Oh, only 3 Traverse the Uvenwald? I cannot co-sign 3 Traverse the Uvenwald on a 23-land Delirium deck. I don't know. I draw the line there. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. Ephro and I talked about this. He was always willing to play 3 potentially, but I think he'd want to play 3 and 23 or 3 and 24. I don't remember where he fell on that, but Ephro said that it's not sacrilegious to cut a Traverse. I always just I play 4 Traverse in these kind of decks. But it is true that Traverse is a little worse in this build than in the other Delirium decks because, you only have 2 Lilianas. You have no grapple, no vessel. So I don't think it's actually that bad in specifically this deck to play only 3 Traverse. I'd be more likely to play 4, but I think that one's close.
So this is an interesting deck because it can go both ways, right? It's so offensive, but it can transform into like an Ob Nixilis Ishkanah deck, add a Grasp of Darkness kind of deck after sideboard, and just go, change to a much slower version. But it's never going to be as good at being slow as the other version.
It's interesting. Mateo Moore played Ephro style black green with a couple, not very many changes either. He's still just 1 Liliana, 3 Grasp. But his twist is he cut the 4th Kalitas for an Ishkanah Grafwidow. And that was basically his only thing to the main deck. The sideboard, however, has a Keys to the City, 2 Keys to the City, in fact. What do you think of Keys to the City in a deck like this?
Key to the City, that's such an interesting card. I actually really I enjoy playing against it even. It has so much stuff going on. So a couple of things going on here. One of them is it gives you an outlet to discard a card, right? So it can help you establish Delirium if you couldn't have got there before, right? That's one thing. Second of all, because this kind of deck is it's such a racer, right? That you just get the correct creature in, and go to town. You're gonna win the race. With particular key creatures, that's something that I think if I'm playing against this deck, it's certainly not a card that I'm going to expect to see. So that might change things. If you look at it like, what if you get like your Kalitas through, or something huge on Verdurous Gearhulk? Like maybe Verdurous Gearhulk puts all of its counters on something that was just going to get blocked by a Scion or something, right? Maybe Key to the City is awesome in that situation. And it doesn't require any mana to use the first time, right? Yeah, it's only in future activations.
And making your guy unblockable is kind of interesting.
That's what I'm saying. I think
the looting is the biggest part of it, but
nobody's gonna play the card if it didn't have the looting ability, right? Like discard a card, give a thing unblockable until end of turn.
No. But what I mean is that some decks play Keys to the City because they really want the Madness outlet.
Yeah.
Some people play the Madness Enabler. Some people play Keys to the City because they want to make their Metalwork Colossus unblockable. Some people play Keys to the City because they want to get a little card filtering in their mid-range deck that just runs out of gas. And it's always a little A, a little B, and a little C. But different decks have a different focus on the different parts.
But you're saying this deck wants the looting more than kind of the other aspects.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspects are important too, but this deck values the looting a little bit more than say like a black-red deck. So it values the selection more so than just the discard outlet.
I've got some question marks around some of these decks. For me, the card that I think isn't getting played enough in the black-green decks we're looking at right now is Distended Mindbender, right? Like, we've looked at 3 different versions between Mateo Moore.
I got the list for you, and it has Distended Mindbender. Victor Fernando Silva. His list looks like it's what I imagine if you were to average all of the other lists together. This is what it would be of all the different types. He's got your Verdurous Gearhulk alongside a Noxious Gearhulk, alongside 3 Ishkanahs and 3 Mindrack Demons. He's got a Pilgrim's Eye. He's got a Distended Mindbender. He's got a Kalitas. He's got a Tireless Tracker. He's got Emrakul. Yes, you're like, okay, well, you can't really play the Grapples and the Vessels. Well, he's actually playing both. It's just that he cut half of both of them. He's like, he went from 4 Grapple to 2, and from 2 Vessel to 1. And then he has
to make room for these Ruinous Paths and main deck Transgress the Mind.
Yeah, he's got 2 of those, and then 1 Murder. Still finds room for 4 Grasp of Darkness, but...
what's weird to me is the 1 Pilgrim's Eye. Like, that's a card you're either not... You don't have Delirium on turn 2, so you're not gonna traverse for the Pilgrim's Eye.
No. It's because so Noxious Gearhulk, Verdurous Gearhulk, and Pilgrim's Eye together are 3 artifacts in the deck for casting Emrakul. It's more about the Emrakul than it is about the like traverse the Ulvenwald.
I mean, why not just play a more powerful artifact then?
Like what?
One of the other Gearhulks.
No, because he wanted to have a critical mass of cards to actually sacrifice to Distended Mindbender.
Well, yeah,
and just a curve. I mean, it's just mana curve considerations.
Yeah, I still think it's weird.
Okay, here's a different way to look at it.
I think it is weird.
How many threes do you think that? Like, I don't know. Is for instance, is 9 a reasonable number of threes to play? What about 8?
It depends on your deck, but both are reasonable.
Right. So Pilgrim's Eye is the 9th 3. However, it's kind of nice to play Tireless Tracker as a 4.
That's true. I much prefer Tireless Tracker as a 4 than as a 3, personally.
Yeah. And actually, it really is a 4 in this deck, as his only proper 4s, are 3 Mind Rack Demons and Ecletus. However, he does have access to the possibility of a. He's not really going to be Distended Mindbendering on turn 4. He's more of a turn 5 Mindbender, or more realistically, he's a turn 6 Mindbender, because what happens is you play Ishkanah, Grafwidow on 5, and then when you untap, you Mindbender off of Ishkanah.
That's a good move sequence. The thing that I always get a little hung up on is the discipline around the number of Evolving Wilds. I feel like people who play with Tireless Tracker, even if it's only like 1 or 2, tend to play more Evolving Wilds. And I don't know, like if you look at Fernando Silva's deck, he's got 2 Evolving Wilds, and a lot of these other decks have only got 1. I don't know. I've actually, the only reason I've got this on the brain is a fair number of folks have actually come up to me and said, I play my Evolving Wilds so bad. And I'm like, why do you play your Evolving Wilds? Because it's just a Tireless Tracker. You know, like they play it in weird sequence, you know, or like they want to play it early, but then they don't. Then it becomes a tax on them later because they want to just trigger Tireless Tracker with it. I don't know. Is that even something interesting to talk about?
So I think that there have been a number of times where Tireless Tracker has been, like the fact that you're playing 3 or 4 Tireless Trackers makes you play an extra Evolving Wilds more than you normally would, because of the potential for getting that extra clue and then having that extra card when you're grinding later. I think that is a less desirable line of play in these Delirium decks, even if they had 3 or 4 Tireless Trackers, because to start with, you have way too many tap lands already, because 4 Traverse and 4 Hissing Quagmire are effectively 8 tap lands. And then even though Blooming Marsh is amazing, awesome, and untapped the first 3 turns, if you draw a Blooming Marsh, it is also a tap land. So like if you were saving your Evolving Wilds for turn 4, and then you draw Blooming Marsh, well, now you can't play Ishkanah Grafwidow on 5. Because you don't have a land that's untapped, and I think that the real question ends up coming down to just how many tap lands can you afford.
Like that's kind of where I was coming from. Like, I think that this version doesn't have such more difficult color requirements that, given the fact that all these decks are 23 land decks with either 3 or 4 Traverse the Uvenwalds, that it really is supposed to have double Evolving Wilds. I think it's just a consequence of playing with Tireless Tracker. That's the intuition I have looking at the deck list. Because if you look compared to the other ones, they don't act that way.
And it's worth noting he's got a second tracker in the sideboard.
Yeah, well, he's got 1+1.
The thing is that like Salvado played Tireless Tracker 1+1, and he only played 1 Evolving Wild. And Cespedes, Christian, I guess, he played 2 Tireless Trackers in the main and only played 1 Evolving Wild. I think it's mostly just that everybody's kind of going from the same starting point, and the starting point had 1 Evolving Wild, and Fernando actually decided to add a second one as opposed to most of the other people. Although some potential fuel, some ammunition for your argument, Eduardo dos Santos played 2+1 Tireless Tracker, and he actually went up to 3 Evolving Wilds.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the Evolving Wilds are like an epidemic for these guys who've got the Tireless Trackers, and And when you say that it's like too many tap lands, right? So if the listeners are maybe finding it difficult to parse like how a Traverse the Ulvenwald is a tap land, right? If you think about what a tapped versus an untapped land is on the turn that you play it, right? You pay a tax of having your land come into play tapped, and in return you get color fixing, right? Whether that's an Evolving Wilds, which can get a basic land for you, or it's a Hissing Quagmire that can tap for either black or green, or, when we had Tri-lands, they operated the same way. When you traverse the Ulvenwald, you're using a G, so that when you play a land that turn, it's not like you just played it straight. Like, it's not like you just ripped a swamp and you played it. You had to tap a G to get the swamp, so you're actually effectively down 1 mana, same as if it was after turn 3 and you're running a Blooming Marsh. So
right.
I think that's less. I think it's less of an issue in short games, but it becomes like really an issue when you're under pressure and you either need to hit like Ishkanah Grafwidow on curve, or it's one of those games that you just keep counting your graveyard and you're like, count. What's my sum to 13, right? Then you just need to nail this last land so that you can catch your Emrakul. So I think these are all the small things that when you add them together can win or lose games. That's my 2 cents.
So the Traverse deck in the Ulvenwilds in Ephro style deck, they actually play a very important role that's a little different than the way that Traverses in the more standard Delirium. The standard Delirium deck, part of the value you're getting, part of what you're paying for, is the possibility of going and finding your Emrakul, or going and finding Ishkanah or Noxious Gearhulk on time, or making sure you have a Kalitas even if you're not loaded on them. And using it as a demonic tutor is an important part of the value. Part of the, like, you're making sacrifices so that it can be a demonic tutor some of the time. You have much more mana because those decks also have grapple with the past, which could potentially find a land most of the time. In Ephro's deck, though, the difference is that Traverse is not turned on very often. It's actually surprisingly uncommon to actually get to use Traverse as a demonic tutor. Interestingly, Traverse's main function is to make sure Grim Flare and Narwood Dryad, if you have it, are +2/+2. Because this deck is actually a little short on ways to get Delirium at all.
So it just puts a sorcery in your graveyard.
Exactly. This is a deck with no sorceries besides the Traverses. Like, getting creatures and land is easy. Getting, you've got Smuggler's Copter too, and Evolving Wilds and the ability to mill. But you do need another type besides creature and land beyond just instant. Because instant, you've got Grasp and Blossoming Defense, and that's not even counting if you play Murder. So like the first 3 are not that hard to come by, but you do need another one. And Traverse the Ulvenwild turns sorcery on as an option,
Yeah,
and the opportunity cost is low.
I super didn't appreciate the fact that you had such few sorceries, and it just goes to the graveyard. It costs nothing. It pays for itself, actually.
Right, and it does a little bit with the sideboard plan of a lot of these decks, because it's very common for the Ephro style of Delirium deck to have at least one Distended Mindbender and some amount of Ishkanah. But if you have a Distended Mindbender in your sideboard, then suddenly Traverse has new meaning, because the people where you want to sideboard in Distended Mindbender against are the people where you're already boarding in Transgress the Mind and some Planeswalkers.
Because you're going to be planning to play a longer game there, right?
Right, and so if you're boarding in Planeswalkers and more sorceries, suddenly Delirium is becoming so much more of an option. And then you can actually use your Traverse as a demonic tutor to go get the one Distended Mindbender to rip them apart. So I'm into it. So, is there anything else you wanted to touch on with regards to specifically the Delirium decks? Because there's a really exciting deck over in Santiago that I wanted to get your take on.
Oh, let's move on then. I think that we spent a fair amount of time on the Delirium decks. They're really cool. Like you said, they're a third of the field at least, and you can go at least 2 different directions. One fast, one slow with them. A lot of powerful cards, though. So which one do you think is super exciting?
Marcos Paulo de Jesus Freitas Blue-Red Colossus. The old MPDJF in the legacy, in keeping with the tradition of Paulo Vito de Madrosa.
Yep.
This Blue-Red Colossus deck.
I was pretty sure this is the one that you were going to say.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I've been playing against similar kind of decks on Mitgo a fair amount, and it's a riot. This deck, it's got such expensive cards, and there's interesting things going on. That's for sure.
It does have expensive cards. However, looks can be deceiving. I mean, Elder Deep Fiend isn't nearly as expensive as it looks. And Metalwork Colossus certainly isn't.
Glint Nest Crate into Elder Deep Fiend is... I've enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. So, a number of things I wanted to get your take on. First, how do you feel about Incendiary Sabotage in the sideboard instead of Kozilek's Return?
Well, this is one of the cards we talked about before the format actually started playing, right?
Yep.
This is a powerful card, right? It can do 3, so doing 3 is sweet, and
hitting Fleet Wheel Cruiser and Smuggler's Copter, plus the format just has so many 3 toughness cards, particularly these people playing Spell Queller and Reflector Mage and all sorts of stuff.
I think that the incremental cost is relatively low, right? So if you're gonna sacrifice Prophetic Prism, it's basically free.
Yeah, it's just like a little extra work you have to do to cast your Colossus later, but it's definitely cheap, and it's nearly free too if you sacrifice your Foundry Inspector because it was going to die anyway.
Oh yeah, that's fair. So the Foundry Inspector, that's an interesting card, right? Like, was this card heavily played at the Pro Tour in this archetype?
Yeah. It wasn't like it was more common than not, but it wasn't universal.
Yeah, this seems that's my least favorite card in this deck list, but it's at least a good setup man for Elder Deep Fiend.
Also, I think a lot of people did not play 4 Foundry Inspectors, but some people actually played 5 using Herald of Kozilek.
Ah.
Herald of Kozilek's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, but what we're really trying to get at with this deck is obviously you're playing all kinds of these goofball artifacts, Deadlock Trap and Metal Spinner's
Puzzle Knot. With Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot in a deck with none of the lands able to activate it besides the 4 Aether Hubs. Now, he does have 4 Cultivator's Caravans and 4 Prophetic Prism, so it's actually not that hard to activate, but it is just a little funny to look at,
Yeah, for the youngins out there, when we used to pay 3 mana, we could draw as many cards for 1 life as we wanted.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about, man. This card, Think Twice, was printed I don't know, a decade ago? And this is like Think Twice.
Well, this card does not compare very well to Think Twice if you're not some sort of artifacts linear, right? So this costs you life, and it's not an instant. I was comparing it to Necropotence.
It's definitely worse than Necropotence, man.
But yet here it is, and it's
yeah. What are the odds? I can't believe that a card worse than Necropotence top 8'd this Grand Prix.
But so this deck is all about having a bunch of artifacts that I guess you're willing to put in your deck, don't cost too much mana, so that you can get down to your Metalwork Colossus.
Well, the key is not just the Metalwork Colossus. It's the fact that this deck with 4 Sanctum of Ugins and 2 Inventor's Fairs that are basically always on.
Yep.
This deck has access to 10 Metalwork Colossus, and that's not even counting the Glint Nest Cranes. And so what will happen is that you'll chain stuff together, and sometimes you want to go get an Elder Deep Fiend or 2. But this deck tries to just hang out, develop its board, but try to get out some stuff, and then it just goes and just goes off and plays like 2 Metalwork Colossus and gets an Elder Deep Fiend to tap you down and then kills you in one big hit. And it's actually it's very relevant that the Elder Deep Fiend does 5, because Cultivator's Caravan is a natural 5, and so often you can get in, like, you'll have a Caravan in play, and you can crew the Caravan with like a Foundry Inspector or something. And it's funny because crewing the Cultivator's Caravan is not trivial in this deck. It's not trivial at all. Like you've got to because the Cranes are not, they don't make a good crew.
Yeah.
And what's funny is
the Sky Sovereign. What is this like? It's like a 5 casting cost Incendiary flow in this deck. It's so hard. It's so hard to crew.
No. So the Sky Sovereign is actually not that bad. So the Sky Sovereign has a couple great things going for it. To start with, it is a flying deterrent that can block Archangel Avacyn. So you can put the Sky Sovereign in play, that you kill something like a Spell Queller or whatever. They can't Reflector Mage the Sky Sovereign. And it's actually easier to crew than it might look on defense, because you can tap the Colossus. Seriously, the Colossus crews the Sky.
I think in all the times I played against this deck, I think I got attacked by a Sky Sovereign once, and it was crewed by 3 Glint Nest Cranes. So
Foundry Inspector is the usual one.
Yeah, I mean, it should curve that way, right? But that's not how it doesn't work with haste or anything. But I don't know. I found that card interestingly difficult to crew. That's playing from the opposite side. I've never actually.
Well, it also just makes sure sometimes you just don't want it to crew, because it makes your Colossus 5 cheaper. So that's actually like a pretty big game, getting it down. Like if you can drop the Sky Sovereign, because if you play the Sky Sovereign on 5, it often is 0. Just because of the curve of the way the rest of the artifacts work.
Sure.
Because if you have a Cultivator's Caravan and a Prophetic Prism or a Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, which is a very common way to do it, the Sky Sovereign is free on turn. If you play it on turn 5. So I think it is interesting. The way this deck uses Sky Sovereign in such a different way than the Vehicles deck, like the Mardu or Red-White Vehicles decks do whenever they play it. What do you think of, actually, in the sideboard, the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knots? Sometimes you don't want to take damage. You want to gain life instead, so you just take out the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knots and bring in Woodweaver's Puzzle Knots.
I didn't think about taking out the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knots. I just assumed they sided in the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knots to just, some redundancy where they're gaining some life. This is the interesting thing is this is yet another card that they can't actually use the full ability easily, right? It requires green mana, which means that they need to use Aether Hub or Prophetic
Prism, Cultivator's Caravan. It really is pretty easy to set that up, though, all things considered. By the time you actually have the kind of extra mana where you'd actually want to activate it.
Yeah. So is this like the Tinker deck of the format, right? It's just big spell
that's exactly.
deck.
That's a perfect way to describe it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's actually exactly perfect. This really is a Tinker deck.
It's kind of Secret Force-ish. It's a big spell deck, because if you're in the market for this kind of deck, what's the incentive to playing this instead of playing Aetherworks Marvel?
Well, they kind of go from 2 exact opposite sides, actually. Like, even though they look conceptually similar in that you're cheating out some expensive card, they couldn't be more different with regards to what they're good against. The Metalwork Colossus deck is resilient. It has inevitability when the game goes long. It's very, and that's true about the Marvel deck if it goes really long, but it takes a long time to get to a place of actually just casting all the Eldrazi. The Marvel deck is much more about the fact that if they're not playing Disruption, you can just blow them out on turn 4. If the Metalwork deck, however, if they don't have Disruption, it doesn't really matter very much. There's not really a ton for them to disrupt. And if they do play Disruption, it also doesn't really matter that much because there's not a lot to disrupt. The deck is playing with, its big threat, Metalwork Colossus, comes back from the graveyard over and over again, but more importantly, it travels in packs. This is a deck that regularly will get 40 power on the table, 30 or 40 power.
Because you can trigger Sanctum of Ugin so easily in this deck.
Yeah, an Inventor's Hub. And Gluttonous Crane is digging for even more. And then it has so many cantrips. Hedron Archive, cantripping twice. Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, cantrip. Prophetic Prism, cantrip. There's lots and lots and lots of dig. And so this is a deck that's going to, even if you slow it down, and slowing it down is effective, but it is only temporary, because this is a deck that picks up more and more and more speed as the game goes on, whereas the Marvel deck is all burst in the beginning, then a long period of hoping to cobble something together, and then later could get good again, but it doesn't really go that long because it's usually dead long before then.
Yeah, so the thing about this deck that I found to be really interesting is cards like Ceremonious Rejection have widely variable efficacy against this deck, right? Like, if you Ceremonious Rejection a Foundry Inspector, that might be more useful than getting one of the big spells later, because they're just going to buy back Metalwork Colossus at some point.
Yeah, and you can't really stop them from doing some of their stuff, right? Like Elder Deep Fiend, even if you counter it, is tapping everything. And even if you counter whatever their big card is, they still get to use the Sanctum of Ugins. So, this is the sort of situation where your best bet is generally to slow down the right enablers. Because sometimes you don't care as much. You're like, it's turn 3 and they're going to play a second Prophetic Prism. Who cares? Sure. But if it's turn 3 and they're playing a Deadlock Trap or a Foundry Inspector, a lot of the time that's going to be your highest value target to hit, or the Cultivator's Caravan. Even hitting a Sky Sovereign can be pretty sweet, but you don't want to hold out for that. You'd rather just get the tempo while you can and slow them down, because if you just let them, if you're saving your Ceremonious Rejection for the Sky Sovereign, and they go Prophetic Prism into Cultivator's Caravan, into Deadlock Trap, suddenly they can just cast the Metalwork Colossuses, and even if you counter them, they can just replay them again. And that's not even counting triggering all their stuff.
Stasis Snare is outrageous against this deck, right?
Absolutely. Stasis Snare is a real problem. Now, one thing you can do is sacrifice your Metalwork Colossus. And this is kind of interesting. It's often good to have a Metalwork Colossus in the graveyard, because sometimes you'll just get so many artifacts in play where it's just no longer an issue ever casting the Colossus. Between your lands and all your artifacts, they always just cost 0. If you have a Colossus in the graveyard and you don't need it yet, in particular, the way I saw this come up was with using an Elder Deep Fiend to sacrifice one Metalwork Colossus from a Stasis Snare, and then sacrificing the Metalwork Colossus in play to the Metalwork Colossus in the graveyard against the second Stasis Snare.
That's awesome. That's a really good tip, right? Because if you can actually get the Metalwork Colossus with a Stasis Snare, then the ability of the Blue-Red Colossus deck to win is hugely impacted, right? The inevitability goes away if you're actually removing these creatures from the game. But I think it's a little non-intuitive sometimes. It's sacrificing my own thing in response to a 1-for-1 removal spell doesn't make that much sense to me, especially if I'm sacrificing 2 things to get back 1 thing. But in this deck, being in the graveyard isn't the end for the Metalwork Colossus, right? It's got inevitability in the long game, but being removed from game is a big deal. So, you can trust in the cantrips and the card, the incidental card advantage you pick up over the course of the game to make up for something like that. But getting removed from the game, at some point you're going to run out of threats, right? Even if you just laid out a blue-white deck and they've got 1 Declaration in Stone and 4 Stasis Snare, at some point they can have dealt with all of your big threats except for the 2 Elder Deep Fiends, right? And I guess Sky Sovereign, depending on how that goes. But
well, actually, that's the thing, though. This deck is more vulnerable than most to getting stuck where its Sky Sovereign is in play, And if the other person's been going after all your other threats, you can't find a crew.
Crew it, right?
Right.
Triple glint nest crane.
And it's tough because you could end up with like a bunch of cultivators caravans and sky sovereigns, and as long as the other person is just going aggressively after your foundry inspectors and metalwork colossus, it's super hard to crew it.
So I think this deck is real interesting. I'm not personally that comfortable in terms of what kind of strategies would be great against it, right? Like, it seems like if you don't kill them quickly, they're just doing way better stuff than you, so long as you haven't exiled other metalwork colossuses.
I think that white-blue flash is favored against blue-red colossus pretty solidly. The combination of stasis snare, declaration in stone, spell queller, a good tempo game. I think that it could also just win a lot faster than a lot of the other decks, like than other blue decks. Delirium, on the other hand, is I don't think Delirium is as good. The Ishkanah can still be good, but the Colossus deck I found to be actually quite effective against the Ephro style. Like when you can just drop Deadlock Trap to help buy you some time, and then when Metalwork Colossus is actually just infinity big, because the deck just doesn't have removal for a Colossus. That's I think that's where you're going with this strategy, is that you want to have a little bit of edge against the Delirium people. But these are all the matchups in Standard are close, Well,
I was thinking the defensive Delirium deck would be worse than the Ephro style Delirium. Like, just blocking with a 5 toughness thing is just not that impressive against. It's just their threats are so substantial. They can run you out of value at some point, right? And they've got Sky Sovereign Console Flagship is not trivial to play against if you're not interacting with their ability to crew it. If they could be coming at you for 16 damage or something, and you're going to lose 3 things in the exchange, and they're going to lose nothing, right? Isn't that what happens a fair amount of the time for the defensive Delirium deck? Mind Rack Demon has no match for the threats in this deck. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, at least they have stuff like a lot of appetites for the unnatural and transgress the minds. The big one, though, is actually if you lost Legacy, Metalwork Colossus, it's actually surprising. I mean, that's a really good way to do it. This is a deck that Lost Legacy is particularly effective against.
Yeah, because its threats are so narrow.
And it has so many tutors to go find the one threat that it has 4 copies of. And it's a recursive threat. So the fact that Lost Legacy can go get all of those out of their deck preemptively, but also plays cleanup duty in case they already had some, it is a particular, because a lot of the time if you play Lost Legacy against a Delirium deck, it's like, okay, you got their Emrakul. But they have a lot of other threats. This deck, if you take their Colossus, they have Sky Sovereign and Cultivator's Caravan, a hard time trying to crew those, and then 2 Elder Deep Fiends, and that's it.
And if it's just 2 Elder Deep Fiends, you could probably manage to kill it, right? That's the thing.
Right.
So, you know who I think is the man in this deck? Padim.
Padim is sweet. Artifacts you control have hexproof is actually just, surprisingly good, but then it also just draws a card every turn.
Yeah, because Padim is actually, I think when you have him in, he's probably pretty hard to kill. And then you've got Howling Mine, and your Howling Mine is drawing you free 10/10s. It's just all coming together. It's
What also helps take advantage of how much people want to take Grasp of Darkness out, because your deck has Sky Sovereign, Cultivator's Caravan, Elder Deep Fiend, Metalwork Colossus, and Glint Nest Crane. Grasp of Darkness is obviously nice against Foundry and Spectre, but it's hard to play Grasp of Darkness against this deck, Do
you think the energy sub-theme in this deck is just a trap? I look at these energy cards, I just want to shake my head.
No.
You don't think it's a deadlock trap?
No, it's not. That's wildly inappropriate, Mr. Flores. All right. That's 2/3 of a pun. PU.
I want to talk about the other blue-red deck. Jonathan Lobo Melamed's blue-red Fever deck.
Yep.
What happened here? This is literally just last season's deck minus 2 main deck Bedlam Revelers plus 2 Chandra Torch of Defiance, and I'm not even convinced Chandra is better than Bedlam Reveler.
He's got, man, this deck's got all kinds of sweet stuff. 2 Tormenting Voice instead of Cathartic Reunion.
That it's last season's deck. This is just like dial back the Star City Invitational top 8. Like it's. I mean, I don't know. It has.
I do appreciate after like a month of people constantly playing 2 or 3 Galvanic Bombardments, there is something kind of nice about somebody actually just playing 4 for once. Dude, he has 2 Unsubstantiates.
Yeah, it's less. Well, I mean, Unsubstantiate, to be fair, is like really good if you have Fevered Visions in play on many levels.
I know. I'm just saying we haven't seen that card in a while.
Yeah, like since the Star City Invitational top 8. was the last time we saw this deck without Spire Bluff Canal, with Bedlam Reveler instead of Chandra's Torch of Defiance. Because this main deck, like you said, Tormenting Voice instead of Cathartic Reunion. What? Storm Chaser Mage? Like
3 Highland Lake, huh?
Like this deck. So the thing
here's I'm a big Highland Lake guy in general.
Yeah.
Just like in general in life, I'm into it. This is a deck that has only 24 land, and it needs a 20th red source more than a 4th island. A 20th red source. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it needs a 20th red source as much as having 1 less tap land, but that's just me. I don't know. I'm a stickler for mana bases. I like my lands coming into play untapped.
I'm not even
tapped
sure.
With Vivid counters.
I'm not even sure that the Chandras are better than just playing 2 more Tormenting Voice, right? Like,
they are. Chandra's actually sweet in this deck.
What you really want to have a high consistency of getting your Fever Visions on turn 3. Like, I think like this deck is just complete. It's like 2 different decks. If it doesn't have Fever Visions on turn 3, I think it's way worse 75% of the time. If it's Fever Visions on turn 3, it's just like, all right, you probably have like a 3-turn window to kill me, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. And that
I think that Chandra is actually pretty great in this deck. The fact that you just drop Chandra on 4 and instantly get to play either a Thermo Alchemist or an Incendiary Flow or a Galvanic Bombardment to protect it. You can even play a Lightning Axe Fiery Temper combo.
I like Chandra.
I think Chandra McMana is where the action's at.
I like Chandra in general. It's just like, and all the things you said are true, of course, right? But it's just not particularly synergistic with the strategy of this deck, is it? It's just like a good card. Yeah. And this deck is
this is like a deck that has a bunch of cards. Deck. Yeah, but this is a deck that has a bunch of cards that cost 2 red or less that it would like to play on turn 4.
That's why it needs 20 red sources.
You don't need 20 red sources to do that kind of stuff, man.
I wish I could agree with you, but Jonathan Lobo Melamed did not.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just...
What do you think about Nahiri's Wrath in this deck?
That's fine. Nahiri's Wrath, I mean, you can take it or leave it. It's a metagame call based on how many Planeswalkers you're expecting, because Nahiri's Wrath does combo really well with Fevered Visions, and it is a passable sweeper. But I haven't played enough with his build, obviously, or I guess just the retro blue-red style recently to know if I'd really want to play 2. I usually start these decks with 1, though.
Stone, no one has played this version in a while, right?
Yeah, no, this is definitely... That's the running theme in this format, appears to be that, like, the Kaladesh was just, like, everywhere at the Pro Tour. And now it's like everybody's tech is, let's just kick it old school.
So the thing that's remarkable about this is, even if we're like jibing a little bit, Jonathan Lobo Melamed made the finals of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
no, I'm not saying it's bad.
I'm excited to potentially play this deck. Like,
You are so hooked on blue-red, man.
Didn't we discuss this? I don't remember when we discussed. At some point, I just became the blue-red guy, right? Like I was just like, oh, I'll blue-red Delver and Legacy.
How am I the green-white guy and you're the blue-red guy?
I don't know. I think you rubbed off on me in a good way. I rubbed off on you in a horrible way. You won a Pro Tour with a green-white creature, so then you're like, oh, this is great. And I, won an FNM last week, but I was playing blue-red. But anyway, I like this. You know what card this deck is really bad against? Like, so bad? Distended Mindbender. You can do nothing about a Distended Mindbender in this deck.
If you have Fevered Visions in play already, at least you can, like, draw out of it.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're sure to get two good cards.
And you do have Lightning Axe. Like, Lightning Axe
No, you don't.
You do. Yes, you do.
Descended Mindbender comes down and takes your Lightning Axe.
But you can draw Lightning Axes.
Oh, I see.
It's a thing. If you just have the Lightning Axe already in your hand, then you're right. But if you have the Lightning Axe already in your hand, why did you let them keep a Pilgrim's Eye?
Oh my god, that's so bad. Can you imagine, like, you're so scared of Descended Mindbender, you're like, Lightning Axe, your Pilgrim's Eye, like discard my Unsubstantiate. Like,
not like this.
It might be better than the alternative.
There was actually, I did want to touch on a little bit of the technology used by some of the players outside the top 8, though. There was a couple individual items that I thought you might find interesting, such as Tooth Collector in Thomas Hendricks Black-Green Delirium sideboard, 9th place finish over in Warsaw. Tooth Collector.
Let me just jump over there.
Which is for everybody that hasn't played in this, Shadows of Innistrad Limited recently. 2 and a black for a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until on a turn. Delirium at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If there are 4 more card types, yeah, of course. Just basically, you get to do another -1/-1. And the thing that people are doing with Tooth Collector is putting it down and then just immediately getting the Selfless Spirit or the Rattle Chains, which is boom. And then you just have them locked out. Yeah. And it also just makes combat weird because you can very easily turn on the Delirium part, and then you can just be like, okay, well, your spell callers are 1/2, so I guess it's not going to be able to hold off my guy or whatever,
It's actually an excellent card to play against decks that are poor in terms of creature removal, right? Like, they just don't have very much creature removal, and I think White Blue Flash is a great example of that, right? I mean, this is an atrocious card to Declaration in Stone, for example, right? But you might have to do it because it's just going to kill all your 2/1s.
Yeah. Yep. So what do you think? Are you in? Or medium?
I don't think I'm in. No.
What about Gandhi? What about Gandhi, Lord of Luxury? Gandhi, played by Marcio. Marcio had 2 Gantis in the sideboard, presumably for a combination of attrition and to be able to trade up against fatties. In
style. So that guy, first of all, Ganti has Death Touch, right? So that's I think it's a non-trivial thing on this creature, which isn't very big for its cost. He's probably gonna Death Touch something that trade up, like you said. I think that he does have a cool opportunity to get some card advantage out of him. It's not a card I would have protected.
Where's the matchup though? Who is it that you want the card advantage against?
Are there not matchups where you just want to be the grindier, slightly more attrition-y, advantageous kind of deck? Like, is it good?
Well, there is. It's good against control. I just think that control is at an all-time low. Maybe it's good enough in the mirror. I don't have enough experience. I haven't played it in the mirror, but against control, the card has been good. I just think that the format may have shifted to a space where you really just got to be teched out for Delirium, mirrors, and then White Blue Flash and vehicles.
So, is it valuable enough where you cast Ganti in the mirror, right? It's 4 casting cost. You get to look, but you're taking away an asset of theirs, right? It's not just, even it's not one that they have in hand yet, right? If there's a number of key cards that matter the most in the mirror, if you can get one of those and then potentially get it and cast it because you have the correct color, it's synergistic with your strategy because you're playing the mirror. Is that something? Like, maybe it has a little bit more of a bonus in the mirror than just the regular text on Gonti because of that, right? Like, it's like 1.5 instead of just +1.
That's possible. It is nice that it puts the other cards on the bottom instead of their graveyard, so that you're not just fueling their Delirium.
Yeah, that's nice. But I mean, like, I don't know. What card is awesome in the mirror? Is it Liliana, the best card in the mirror? Or maybe you could get, like, Obnixilis or something.
I think Emrakul and Ishkanah are both really good.
So Emrakul might be awesome to take because they've only got one, right? But it's unlikely you'll hit it. I don't know.
One of my favorite decks from this weekend was the ninth place list from Santiago. Man, if only Nicolas de Nicola's blue-black control deck. Man, if this one had sneaked in. Blue-black control, bring in Torrential Gearhulk back. 4 Torrential Gearhulks, and then Planeswalker as his only creatures. And then Planeswalkers, 3 Liliana the Last Hope, 2 Jason Raveler of Secrets. And it's noteworthy that the main deck, the only victory conditions that he has besides the 4 Torrential Gearhulks are those 3 Lilianas, other than the backdoor long shot possibility of the 2 Ruinous Paths. But this is a deck with a lot of spot removal, but also a lot of permission. He's got 2 Negate, 4 Void Shatter, a Revolutionary Rebuff for 7 counterspells straight up, with 4 Torrential Gearhulks for the rebuy. But he's also got 4 Grasp of Darkness, 3 Essence Extraction, and a Murder, so that he's got 8 extra instant speed removal spells he can flash back in addition to the 2 Ruinous Paths and 3 Lilianas. And then he's also got 4 Anticipate and 4 Glimmer of Genius for helping smooth out his draws. And this is the part that it's funny. I mean, I love Jace Unraveler of Secrets just as a card draw engine for these decks
right now. Well, it's really
grown
on me, and it's cool because he has Torrential Gearhulk also, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going with that.
I hate this deck. Hate it.
Oh. Why do you hate it?
I love it also, but I hate it. It has like 14...
You hate playing with it? You respect the person who plays it, right? Like to play it, that's a very waffo move.
Like
just obstinate.
I super respect the person who plays it. I'm glad that there's room for innovation. It has like 14 threes. And
not a lot.
It's so slow. I hate slow interactive cards. When people have Smuggler's Copters, Grim Flares, Spell Quellers, like, I cannot imagine wanting to play with Essence Extraction and 4 Void Shatters, right? Like, there's a time and a place when Essence Extraction should be in your deck, right? There's a time and a place when 4 Void Shatters should be in your deck. I'm a little queasy on having 7 of them in my main deck, not knowing who's going to be sitting across the table.
Dude, you're ready. No matter who it is, you've got one of the things.
Because, like, I don't know. Like both of those cards are pretty bad against Blue-Red Thermo Alchemist, right?
Yeah, but Thermo Alchemist is not a real part of the metagame.
That's fair.
It's so tiny. It's like 3%.
But 12.5% of the top 8, 50% of the finals.
Nah, it's like 6% of the top 8s. You can't just count the one it was in.
Okay,
so
6.25%.
Here's a little funny one.
No, I want you talking about this deck first. I love it and I hate it. I love 4 Torrential Gearhulk so much. I actually spent a fair amount of time trying to make mono blue control in this format, and I came to the conclusion there was no reason not to play a second color, right?
Right.
Because the mana is, I think you can play whatever second color you
by the time if you're going to play mono blue, presumably it's because you think that you're going to get enough value from playing colorless as your second color.
Yeah, but there was just no
there's just not a
but I mean, what do you think? 1 Revolutionary Rebuff. What do you think about this? Like, I feel like I'd rather have a 27th land. Like,
I'm not into Revolutionary Rebuff at
all.
But
he needed to drop his curve. The thing is, like, I don't know, like, 4 Grasp of Darkness, 2 Negate, 4 Void Shatter. Like, he's got 14 basics. Like, this can go so wrong.
I actually think he needs to bring his curve up a little.
Really?
I don't mind the 27th land, to be clear. I actually like a 27th land. I think that the problem here isn't the lack of 2s. Like 4 Grasp of Darkness, 4 Anticipate, 2 Negate. It's not optimal, but it's not the end of the world. I think the problem is that his 4s are non-existent beyond Glimmer of Genius. Really what he's doing is just spending turn 4 playing a 3.
See, I'd
rather see this deck have like 1 or 2 less 3s and find some 4s or 5s that are actually going to have a big impact on the board.
I would totes get behind getting on the right side of the curve, right? But the middle of the curve, I think it's real problematic. He has too many 3s, and then he's spending his 4th turn not doing something interesting, probably, relative to its mana. He's going to be on the back foot like 75% of the time on turn 3, 4. And then he really needs Torrential Gearhulk to dig him out. Like, he needs to hit his 6 mana on curve, and then he's just, needs to snap the table in half with it when it hits the table. Because I think he's just going to be behind so often. And some of these reactive cards, like Essence Extraction, I've said it before, and I know you at least a little bit disagree with me. I just don't think that that's a particularly high-impact thing to be doing at 3.
I couldn't disagree more. Essence Extraction, I think Essence Extraction is a good card on its own, and it's actually one of the parts of this deck I'm a big fan of.
It's like, but contextually, it's in the same universe right now as Smuggler's Copter, Grimflayer, and Gideon. Like,
yeah, but it's great to hit a Smuggler's Copter. And a
Smuggler's Copter's
Spellflower.
faster because Smuggler's Copter's coming for you already.
Right, but it gives you 3 life to try to help make up for a little bit. Look, this isn't a deck that you're playing because you want all your answers at every spot to be hyper efficient. This deck is very obviously an exercise in what are we willing to do if we get to Torrential Gearhulk. Right, like all of the rest of the deck is a concession to Torrential Gearhulk.
And yet, no Grip of Desolation. Grip of Desolation, this would be the perfect deck to play Grip of Desolation. That's the real reason.
No, get out of here.
I love Grip of Desolation would be awesome right now. People play.
You want another 6?
I told you I'm down with making the far end of the curve go up. I don't like where the curve is right now. There's too many 3s.
Dude, I think your obsession with Grip of Desolation is going to get you into trouble someday.
Luckily, I only play blue and red.
So here's one for you. Speaking of blue and red cards, Pedro Carvalho.
Was Pedro the original blue-red guy?
I'm not sure. He's done so many different. He's been so many. I mean, his range. He's got the full range. But Pedro actually played 2 Sin Prodders.
Ooh.
I know. Like, he didn't quite make top 8, so it's still up in the air. But Sin Prodder getting awfully close to top 8 of a Grand Prix.
So this deck is basically red aggro.
Yeah.
He's just got Scrappy.
This is just a red aggro.
Doesn't count, and Unlicensed Disintegration ×4. That card is just wildly awesome. It's his only black card main deck.
Yep.
And so what do you think about Weaver of Lightning? That guy, he's just like he's like in the beatdown sideboards and in the control sideboards.
It's a good card. I'm a fan.
To keep the city in the sideboard, I think I like this build a lot. I like so many things about it. See, this is a deck where I think Chandra makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is definitely a better Chandra deck. Dude, I don't know. I think I'm going to lose my mind. Jose Rodriguez Doy's Mardu Vehicles deck?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how these Mardu Vehicles people, they just splash 4 Ceremonious Rejections off of 4 Spider Bluff Canal, 4 Aether Hub, and 3 Cultivator's Caravan?
Yep.
He has actually split his 4 Ceremonious Rejections, instead playing 2 Ceremonious Rejections
and
a Revolutionary Rebuff. He has 2 Revolutionary Rebuffs in the sideboard of his Mardu deck, because nobody expects Revolutionary Rebuff out of Mardu.
Nobody expects it anywhere. Like, if you were playing Mono Blue and somebody cast that on turn 2, you'd be like, You had so many other choices. But they really don't expect it.
Just think about the decisions in your life that brought you to this place.
I mean, there is something beautiful about a deck that's got turn 3 casts Unlicensed Disintegration, turn 4 drops Gideon, and then sideboard.
No, turn 2 Revolutionary Rebuff, so that when you untap on turn 3, you can just be like, yo, now I can drop my 3-drop without fear.
Turn 1, Thraben Inspector, get a clue, right? Turn 2.
How convenient.
Turn 2, counter your thing. Turn 3, kill your thing, get the trigger because I had a clue. Turn 4, Gideon. Yeah, this is the best. This is the best deck. It's just the best stuff. This is. Do you remember not every time, but there are some formats where you personally, you get into this groove where you're like, if they're gonna let us do it, then it's our obligation to figure out how to do it, right? And you just get to this point where like, I can just cast any spells that I want. Which ones should I cast? Maybe that's actually the answer to this format. I think it's possible. Maybe more colors and less color discipline is the right thing to do. If we have so much structure around what cards people are playing, and we can choose all the good ones that they're playing and then just play more next to them. Like, maybe setting up a Distended Mindbender with a Reflector Mage is awesome. You ever think about that? Like, that seems like spectacular to me. Put their thing into their hand. They can't cast it. Guarantee that you get paid with your Descended Mindbender. By the way, you just like triple time walk them. Maybe that's awesome. Nobody's doing that.
No, they certainly aren't. What do you? Yeah, I think it's easier to play all the colors if you make your base green.
Yep.
But who knows? Maybe your base green deck is the Reflector Mage Distended Mindbender deck.
This deck doesn't have any green, does it?
Yeah, but this deck is not really playing all... Like, Reflector Mage Distended Mindbender is asking a lot more than what is effectively a red-white deck that splashes black and splashes white, and every card is single pip. What do you think of... and I apologize on the name... so Ignacio Gallegos' red-green energy deck, you know, the pummeler style, bristling Hydra, all the energy, and just kind of... So his main deck is slightly interesting, using Rush of Adrenaline instead of the +3/+3.
Made to Smash, is that the name of it?
Yeah. So the Built to Smash is... You know, obviously it's a bigger pump and still gives your pummeler trample. But Rush of Adrenaline can actually make your Bristling Hydra trample more reliably, even if it has a larger than life on it. But the more, like, I'm curious your thoughts on that, but then even more importantly, the sideboard when we come to that.
Really? So are we talking about this and not the fact that it's a 65-card deck?
Well...
I mean, like, how about I just cut the Rush of Adrenalines in 2 more, and then we'll start having a conversation. It's 65 cards.
How did it come to this?
I mean, like, I don't even know if 25 land is the right number, right? So...
I think 25 land is the right number. If you have 4 Attune with Ether, 25 land, and you're playing 65 cards. Because they were only playing 23 land back when they were 60 cards.
How have we come to this is the correct next statement. We're now discussing what the right number of lands for the 65-card Rush of Adrenaline version is. I love the fact that it has Dispel on the sideboard and Negate. I like
That's
that.
Obviously
That's what I care about.
And Fevered Visions.
Now I love this deck because of the Fevered Visions.
Because he's got 4 Aether Hubs and 2 Botanical Sanctums, game 1. And I also, by the way, I appreciate the trying to obfuscate it. He's playing just 2 Botanical Sanctums instead of 4, even though he could easily get away with more.
There's no way 2 is correct in a 65-card deck. There's no possible way.
You got to keep that stuff secret, man. You gotta if you play a Sanctum, then they know you're blue. if you just have like 4 Servant of the Conduit, 4 Aether Hub, and 4 Attune with Aether, then and then 1 island, then you could get there if your deck was 60, and since he's playing 65, obviously he just needs a couple extra, so he's got Botanical Sanctum.
I mean, how insane is it? Turn 2, you go Servant of the Conduit. Turn 3, you play your 3rd land. You go Fevered Visions. They go to Counterspell, and then you're you dispel them.
Spell.
And it was just
what happened?
Red-green Pummeler deck. Just double blue card counterspelled me on the 3rd turn. And then you're destroyed, by the way, right? Because it's a matchup where Fevered Visions is good. So you automatically lose, right? And you have just a handful of creature removal that they never let you cast. They're tell you what, now that my Servant of the Conduit has done its job, you can go ahead and kill it, because I'm not gonna let you interact anymore. Maybe I'm gonna play my Bristling Hydra or whatever, or I'm gonna get you. The reason this deck is bloated is because of Lathnu Hellion. Right, it has too many Lathnu Hellions and not enough Long Tusk Cubs. That's my my thinking, right? But anyway, point being, you could easily put someone in a position where they decided they were going to play against you with point removal, and you just kill them with Fevered Visions, and because you probably don't have to do anything, right? In some matchups, the Fever just literally just kills them once it's resolved, and it just takes a few turns. What are your thoughts on that?
This one's pretty far outside the box. I don't know.
I actually think there's a ton of interesting technology here that's worth exploring. It's just the fact that it's a 65 card deck. I'm not gonna get over it.
Well, I don't know. If your opening hand has Electrostatic Pummeler, Uncaged Fury, Blossoming Defense, or maybe even just a Servant of the Conduit and 2 land. I mean, I don't know.
So here's a question. What's the best card in Kaladesh? Smuggler's Copter or Blossoming Defense?
Smuggling Copter, not close.
Not close? Man,
yeah, not close.
I feel like Blossoming Defense is just... It's so good. It's every single time I see somebody cast it, or they cast it against me, I'm just you could have drawn any.
The majority of Delirium decks don't even play it.
Maybe they're wrong. The majority of Delirium decks, the same Delirium decks that play for Blossoming Defense, play for Smuggler's Copter, and the same decks that don't play any Blossoming Defense, actually, and the other ones play no Smuggler's Copter and sometimes play Blossoming Defense, at least in the sideboard. So,
yeah, but how many Blossoming Defenses do the white-blue Flash decks play? What about the Mardu Vehicles decks? The red-white Vehicles decks. How about them? What about the black-red Looter Graveyard Dredge deck? The Madness decks. How many Blossoming Defenses do they play?
0. All of the answers to those is 0.
Yeah, of course.
How many legacy?
Smuggler's Copter doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's too good.
Yeah.
But I think Blossoming Defense is also too good. Blossoming Defense is a card that's going to win tons of Modern and Legacy large tournaments.
Agree. I think that Blossoming Defenses is a path to exile. It's just that Smuggler's Copter is more like a Jite. Both cards are legacy playable.
I guess one of those cards is too abusively good in a fair number of formats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree those are the 2 best cards from Kaladesh, though?
Nah, I don't know, man.
And then
Blossoming Defenses is great. I played 4 at the Pro Tour. It's great. But, man, there's some other good cards. It's not
Torrential Gearhulk is really good.
Torrential Gearhulk, Verdurous Gearhulk, Unlicensed Disintegration, I think, is a really good candidate.
Yeah, it's funny. I
Scrap Heap Scrounger is a great card.
That card is really fantastic, and I think I don't take it as seriously it probably deserves to be taken.
Which one?
Scrap Heap Scrounger. It's a really good card. I never lump it in correctly with Prized Amalgam, or as it's just part of the value engine in the Black Red Madness deck, and it's not so apparent because the Haunted Dead Prized Amalgam Fiery Temper portion of the deck is so splashy. Every time you're doing something there, it's just big. But Scrap Heap Scrounger just gets his money, right? You just don't know when he's going to get it, right? Sometimes he gets it on turn 2, and he's good. He's a 3-2 for 2. But then sometimes, like, you feel like you're going to stabilize, and then all of a sudden there's a scrap heap scrounger in play. You know? And sometimes he's crewing. Like, all those things are like...
That's one of the things I love, is how reliable of a crew.
Yeah, like
that's a crew for... And the fact that the copter feeds the scrounger...
Yeah, they're buddies.
So, in the top 64, Julio Bejarano put Jeskai back on the map. You know, obviously not a top finish, but did top 64 with a Jeskai deck using 3 Torrential Gearhulks, Windfall the Preserver, an Archangel Avacyn, a Chandra Flamecaller, and 2 Nahiris.
Yeah, so the important thing here is that he moved from Dovin Bond to Nahiri. When you move from Dovin Bond to Nahiri, then it starts making a lot of sense to do stuff like play 1 Linvala.
And part of it is that Torrential Gearhulk is a little less good because he's got 2 Quarantine Fields, a Stasis Snare, 2 Fumigates, 2 Radiant Flames, Planeswalkers and creatures, and then even the instants he does have are not always, like, the most easy to Torrential Gearhulk. So, like, I don't know. I still have trouble imagining wanting to play with 6s besides Torrential Gearhulk here, but...
I think that Chandra is not that good in this deck. I think
that's the one I was thinking. I don't mind the one Linvala, but it's the Chandra that I'm skeptical of.
I think that I would be tempted at least to play even more Nahiris, right? Like, Nahiri, in my opinion, is so much better than Dovin Bond in this strategy.
Could not agree more.
And, like, it does, like, actually does kind of what Dovin Bond wants to do, and its endgame possibility is so strong. Like, let's say things are going the way you want them to, it can, like, go Torrential Gearhulk, value, and then just rebuys itself, and your mana's untapped, like, all at once, right? And you got in with, like, a big attack sometimes. Like, what if it goes just, like, go get Torrential Gearhulk, buy back, like, I don't know, Harness Lightning, kill their blocker, get in, and then it immediately rebuys itself, and you've got, like, Glimmer of Genius waiting or something, right? That's unbelievable. And it's so easy. That's the other thing. Like, it levels up so quickly. It defends you against things like Always Watching, kills any creature you want, right? And it has a ton of loyalty. Like, so many things going for this card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I think that's a good place to end. Like, I actually want to go play Jeskai for a while now. So, I think,
it does have your beloved blue-red in it. Although, as long as you can Spirebluff Canal.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm a little against having cards like Immolating Glare in my deck, right? It's a fine card. I just feel like it's lowering the standard.
You know, you could just, like, cut white and just splash... I mean, keep the white for the splash of Nahiri and the 3rd for Radiant Flames.
Well, and Linvala.
It might be hard to get away from Fumigate, though.
Yeah, I think that if you're gonna play Jeskai or whatever, you have to own it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like playing Grixis. Like, you have to decide that it's okay to have a bad Lightning Helix that costs 3 mana in your deck, and then love that. Right, like,
I'm the person who does that.
Yeah, like, and you love the fact that there's a bad Lightning Helix in your deck, and so, you know, I'm the kind of guy who's like, I just want to play a regular Lightning Helix, and you know, that means that I don't get to play this strategy in this format. You know, I have to play it in a different strategy, in a different format. But anyway, I actually really kind of want to play Jeskai. I think I don't know. It's probably not that good. I think it's bad against blue-white, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm just going to get murdered by blue-white, which is, like, the most common deck.
I don't know. I think you could build your deck to be good against blue-white.
Yeah, I guess we should play, like, a lot of Radiant Flames. I mean, Radiant Flames is so bad against Spell Queller, though.
You don't... No, not Radiant Flames. That's the wrong way. You don't want to be playing Radiant Flames against...
Would I want, like, a ton of Descend Upon the Sinfuls?
I think you want to be playing, like, Grixis more than Jeskai. But if you're going to play Jeskai, I think you want to play... God, I don't know. I guess you want to get away from Immolating Glare.
I mean, I would totally play more Stasis Snares.
Stasis Snare, that's the one.
Those are way better against Colossus.
I'm in for 4 Stasis Snare.
You can Nahiri the crap out of some of that stuff.
Yep.
But anyway, I think brewing about Jeskai is going to be interesting. And yet, I still think it's probably going to be pretty bad against Blue-White. But anyway, thanks for listening. We're Top Level Podcast. We are Top Level Podcast in so many places. Patrick, where can people find us?
You can find us at Flores' house. You can find us at Facebook at Top Level Podcast. You know, you can find us at Twitter. You can find us at Direwolf Digital Studio if you show up during the day.
Well, one of us you can find there, but you'll be able to find both of us at Flores' house this weekend.
Yes. Patreon, YouTube. Man, aren't there like so many different like download site stuff?
Stitcher, they can find us. I don't even know all the iTunes. You can just go to iTunes, look up Top Level Podcast. We'll be there. Yeah. It's crazy. But speaking of Patreon.
Twitter.
If you want to support us on Patreon, we will like that a lot. One person who's done that is Sven Hamann. Thanks, Sven.
Yeah, thank you. Major props, man.
And that's it for this week.
I'm excited for our the special stuff we're putting together for next week.
Yep. It's yay
Top of the
Nahiri,
podcast.
Boo Dovenbon. Goodbye.
Top of the podcast turns 2 next week. See you guys then.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, for jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind. Trapped in a vault with